What's going on, guys? Lucky Cheese 7 is here today to give you guys another My Hero Academia podcast, which, by the time you're listening to this podcast in particular, the Tartarus Escapees podcast should be up and running, and that was done months ago. But, yeah, I guess for once, this is actually the first podcast where it's just me. No James, no Steve, no Manga Reader, no For Life, Sparta, or, dare I say, no Cursed Child?
Ah, you're not getting away with that, Lucky Chi.
Oh no, he's here. Quick, guys, whatever you do, hide your stuff. You don't want him turning it to dust.
Yeah. Anyway, people, but hello everyone. BlueStarSaber here, once again to join Lucky Chi in another My Hero Academia podcast. And given his jokes, you can probably tell that I am the only guest that's on this podcast. Once again, not since like the Endeavor agency arc.
Has it been that long? Huh. That was a while ago then.
Yes, you managed to have Manga Reader for the War arc, let's see, or the Paranormal Liberation War. I believe you had James with us.
James and Steve were on the last one, I know that.
Yeah. And I think there were also the ones on the anime as well.
Yeah. My Hero's been in an interesting place in that, well, okay, it's been, if we're looking chapter-wise, this arc we're gonna be tackling is short. I mean, extremely short.
It's practically a mini arc.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. And for the longest time, and I remember when we did the podcast for the Tartarus Escapees arc, there wasn't even a title yet for this one. And they didn't even label an arc title, like an arc and all for this.
Yeah.
Because the last thing we had up to was 328, and then after that I was like, well, okay, I guess we're still trying to figure out what the name of the arc is. And it wasn't until like after the fight that they just called it the Star and Stripe arc. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, in many ways, this is probably the shortest arc since the retaking of the provisional license one, which focused on at first Bakugo and Shoto and the other failures of the license exam.
The remedial course arc, yeah.
Remedial course
Actually,
arc.
it's the same length, now that I'm looking at it. It's only 6 that one was just 6 chapters too.
Yeah, and let's see, you could also, the second half being involving like Deku bonding with Ayama, which is now playing some important roles in the current arc, but I will not say.
We won't see anything. yeah, well, we're going to say that for its own
podcast thing.
Which, I don't know if it's going to be, if the next arc after this is the final arc. I mean, it very well could be, but...
But most manga arcs, most mangas rarely tend to have mini arcs. So granted, One Piece has had a few. The last one it had was the Lovely arc.
Mm-hmm.
You could technically count Kakashi Gaiden as a mini arc.
Yeah. Kakashi Gaiden could be its own little arc.
And I might have considered, one could perhaps maybe consider Turn Back the Pendulum as a mini arc for Bleach at least. Well, more of like due to Bleach. Well, Bleach's pacing for arcs is actually quite big, really, but still.
Yeah. I know this is technically a spin-off manga, but Fairy Tail Zero you could factor in as a mini arc too. Technically.
But, yeah. Though perhaps that might be more of like the one after the Tenryou Island arc. I think that's technically a mini arc with like them jumping 7 years into the future.
Yeah, there's that too.
But yeah, so yeah, let's see. So what we're saying is, for most part, mini arcs, they are rare, but it's not impossible for them to happen.
Yeah, and to be fair, My Hero technically had I don't want to say a lot of mini arcs in the beginning, but they did have some, for sure. So it wasn't an uncommon thing for My Hero, because I know the first saga, at least the first 3 arcs were short. like 42 chapters.
In many ways, they mostly felt like stuff that you would do like for 1 or 2 episodes for the UJE or the League of Villains attack on UA.
Pretty much.
That was it was mostly small Bretty mini arcs. It could be like 1 to 2 episodes. I think it was mostly 2 episodes each, actually, when I think about it. 2 or 3 episodes before finally going into a more standard, let's see, pacing arc. You usually get My Hero of like 10 to 13 chapters, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But yeah. And that's been the state of My Hero, let's see, for the majority of the arc as it goes on. Though granted, the Paranormal Liberation arc may have changed that a bit, but we'll have to wait and see. Though granted, from the way Koei is talking, My Hero Academia could potentially end this year or next year, I believe.
And that's something we'll get into, like, after we... Actually, no, we could even talk about it, like, as we're talking about this fight, because that's all... If you guys want, like, a basic rundown of the arc, it's essentially Shigaraki versus Stars and Stripes. That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty much like a sort of mini boss battle. It's more like a boss battle, but without like any context or arcs in it, like stuff. Because like how Naruto, particularly in Part 2, would have 3 to 4 volume arcs, and it would mostly be filled up with like 1 or 2 boss battles in it, or maybe like
occasional flashbacks, of course,
and maybe the occasional minor skirmish or minor fight.
Yeah, that too.
But it's like, nope, this is just a mini boss fight.
More or less.
More just like the boss fight, really.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm not complaining that the mini arc was just a fight. I mean, yeah, you could kind of say that's it. That's all that's all the arc is just one little fight. I mean, if we're gonna be honest, the Pro Hero arc, if you look at it, technically was also an arc too that dealt with only one fight, but you had a few extra chapters in the beginning that was
which allowed you to learn who was regarded as the top 10 heroes in Japan and all that stuff, as well as learn who may or may not play a major role in the future of Hero Society in the future. Though granted, the 2 most notable characters were mostly Hawks and the Rabbit Girl, who I keep forgetting the name of.
I think it's Mirko, I think. Everyone's, I want to say, number 1 waifu at the moment. Me, she's alright. She's not bad, but it's okay.
And for me, if I was to pick a waifu for My Hero Academia, it'd probably be Mount Lady.
She's funny. I'll give her that.
Yeah. The only downside is I feel like she make me do all the chore work. Judging from that, let's see what I remember from Minetta's experience under Mount Lady.
Well, you heard it here, folks. You gotta find Blue a Mount Lady.
No, don't take my joke out of context.
Who knows? The guys might be listening to this right now. They might be like, "Yeah, we should find Blue."
I feel like at one point I'm going to get in trouble for what I bluntly say.
They'll probably know it's a joke, so I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. Anyway.
At least it's not an Attack on Titan discussion, because oh my god, what's going on with that? Especially now is a nightmare, but that's besides the point.
Let's see. Yeah, I still can't remember the last time we had the Attack on Titan podcast discussion.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a hint. Depression kicked in. That's all it was that for me.
But anyway, yes, this is pretty much a boss fight, and it pretty much what also gives us some insight on like the international heroes and why they've been so avoidant of Japan, the crisis in Japan at the moment, or why they have yet to come to Japan. and whether or not, let's see, it will resolve the outcome of whether or not they will be able to come to Japan. But also interesting ties. This arc also ties into a bit about All Might's time in America that was briefly shown in the My Hero Academia first movie.
And I love that, by the way, because the big argument people were making, Two Heroes isn't canon. There's no way they're going to factor that into the manga. Well, they did. So now the movie is now officially canon.
Yeah. So granted, maybe not in the way we expected, but there's a nice tie into it. It's like, oh, okay, so so it is canon.
So if Stars and Stripes got, connected into the manga, I'm gonna say this right now: Melissa and Rhodey better show up at some given point. At some given point.
Well, I think Midoriya's gauntlets could be implied to be Melissa's work.
True, could be that. But the other important thing about this mini arc is that it's, in a way, you could say it's technically Shigaraki's second arc. The first arc was really Deku-centric, and you can kind of say this arc was heavy on Shigaraki, which.
Hey. Though, unlike Kishimoto, Koei knows that Midoriya gets the arc with the more screen time compared to Kishimoto with Sasuke getting the more screen time.
Who?
You know what I'm referring to, Lucky Chi.
Who?
Kage-sama arc.
I don't know what you're talking about. Naruto had a great ending. Everyone cheered for him, and he got a hug at the end. That's how the series ended. There was nothing after
that. But yeah.
And we all lived happily ever after. That is how the series ended.
But this is pretty much mostly Shigaraki focused, though Midoriya does have a brief appearance in this arc, because it's main character got up here in every arc.
Yeah, he shows up at the end of the arc, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to, I think, what happened with Rave Master when I think Sig had an arc to himself, I believe. Right?
Yeah. I'm gonna double check on what that arc title was, but I do know what you're talking about.
I guess, granted, technically Kakashi Gaiden did not have Naruto appear in, but that was a backstory when Naruto wasn't even born, so.
Yeah. I want to say that's the Blue Guardians arc, I think. If it's not it's not the Blue Guardians arc. That one was, and I know what you're referring to, that's the arc that focused on C-Card. So, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's the Meldian arc. That's what that one was on. Which, funny enough, was also around the same length as Star and Stripes arc.
Okay. Wait, the Ron and Rave Master?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That was 5 chapters? I thought it was 7.
No, it's 7. But no, this one was so it rounds up to about the same length because the Star and Stripes arc was 6 chapters.
Okay.
That one was 7. So it's around the same range.
Okay. Yeah. But usually so it's 5 to 7 chapters. You'll most likely be considered a mini arc.
Yep. And I'll say this, you do get a little bit of insight as to what's been going on the villain side of things, particularly with All For One, and how, well, he's been in hiding.
Yeah, and this is where you get to the idea about, an idea of what his actual plans are, particularly with his conversation with Spinner and all that stuff. So it's where he's talking with Spinner about what the plan's going on and all that stuff, and Spinner's okay, what exactly? Let's see. Shouldn't we just leave the country if that's how you want to win? But All For One has bigger plans and all that stuff. As we begin, the summary of this, arc, and that.
Which honestly, there's not that much of a.
Yeah, it's pretty much Tim and Spinner discussing what their plans are to do. First is to get out of the hero's sight for a bit, then steal what for all, and then let's see the third bit, which he hasn't revealed yet, but involves the rest of the world and all that stuff. So it's it. So in many ways, this arc gets us an idea of what his plans are, what he has planned for Spinner and the other members of the League of Villains, and how an opportunity of Stars and Stripes has come with her quirk to change the tide against the heroes and possibly prevent international heroes from intervening in Japan and all that stuff. As we learn, many world countries are very reluctant to send their heroes because the heroes represent their military might, if you will.
True.
And there's a risk of if they send their heroes elsewhere, villains are in their place because remember, if from the Two Heroes movie, due to All Might, villains were down 6% in Japan, but the rest of the world, the villain crimes were on 20%.
Give or take.
Now, now that might not seem necessarily bad, but it's enough to keep the heroes busy that they can't really afford to leave and all that stuff. It's not like the chaotic state in Japan, but there's always a risk that it could become, which is what All for One is playing with his friends from the outside the world and all that stuff, as it's clear that he's playing a full-scale war against heroes from the entire world, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So you get Stars and Stripes encountering each other just as she's trying to meet with All Might, the trio of not All Might, the trio
and and Best Genius, right, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the top 3 heroes in Japan right now. Because she technically came here before she got full-on permission. And you also got a few cameos from heroes from the latest movie, the one from Egypt and this lion hero, which I cannot recall from which country he is from. Because they wanted to come out their friend All Might.
Yeah.
So, but of course...
Which, I'll say this. Actually, do you want to finish up what you were going to say, or...
Go ahead, let's see.
I was actually just referring to Stars and Stripes, so... When it came... Because it's mainly battle-centric, there's not... Like I said, there's not a lot to dive into narrative-wise, and that's what the focus of the arc is. But I do remember... Star's quirk was a pretty controversial topic when it was going on.
It's perhaps the most controversial quirk to the series to date.
Okay, if you thought Ares' quirk was controversial, no, that's nothing compared to what Stars and Stripes was capable of.
Yeah, so as Shigaraki and her are about to start their fight, which I should probably mention, Shigaraki doesn't know who he is at this point. Let's see, which is an interesting way to look at his character, but we can discuss more of that later. So anyway, it's revealed that the reason why Stars and Stripes is regarded as the strongest woman and the strongest hero in the world, besides All Might, is because her quirk, New Order, from what I can recall from the description. I'm just going to get it up just so I'm not, doing any mistakes and all that stuff. For chapter 330, I believe, is that quirk, Stars and Stripes quirk is called New Order, as after she touches a target, she can call out the target's name and assign a new rule to it. So that means whatever she touches, a new rule can happen. For example, if she touches the air, she can make it so that no one can breathe a certain amount of air. She can make it so that no one is able to breathe in it, all that stuff. And if she's to touch a person and give out a command of their name and all that stuff, she can order that person to die or something if they move or do something like she does with Shigaraki.
So insert the Timmy's mom joke. Everything I touch dies. Oh wait, that's Blue Star. Never mind.
Hey! That's only with certain shonen mangas, and it's not every manga I've read.
Record of Ragnarok?
That's still ongoing.
Anime-wise.
Let's see, but anyway,
If anyone knew, I just want to let y'all know. Blue is our annual mascot that we like to pick on. So, there's that.
yeah. So if you new time viewers are coming here, this is why we're getting the jokes.
Yep.
But yeah, it's pretty much just the Americans targeting me because I'm English.
That's not true.
No, I'm joking. But yeah, I'm literally like the English representation of the manga podcast.
Yep.
But yeah, but pretty much her new order allows her to give any command she wants to whatever she touches. And you can see why that is controversial.
Yeah, and to be fair, for the first couple weeks, I didn't blame anybody that was kind of nervous because even I was kind of like, huh. I was like, did Koei write himself into a corner? But as we got more chapters,
You
he
start to
kind of
learn
started to find I don't want to say groove, but he was able to work around it, and I did.
and find like the strengths and limits and what can be used to beat this quirk, if you will.
Yeah, I know
Let's see.
some people brought the criticism as like, oh, is he kind of just doing a patch up? And I'm like thinking maybe, but if if it's to limit what she could do, even if we're finding it out from like chapter to chapter, that's fine. As long as you make it work,
Let's see. But let's see. For me, I was like, with the six quirks thing, wait and see.
Yeah.
Because I know that Koei has managed to like bring in concept that was controversial, but eventually work a way around it. That eventually people go like, okay, I can get behind this sort of.
Yeah, like, and here's what I'll say, guys. For anyone who's new, I was one of the people that wasn't too fond of the six quirks idea because here's the thing: we didn't know much about what kind of quirks deck it was going to get, so it was reasonable to assume he's going to be super strong. But then once we found out what those six quirks were, it was like, okay, I guess it's not that. Like, okay, think of like Batman, and you have like his gadgets and whatnot. That's kind of what the six quirks are.
Yeah. Let's see. Pretty much, they gave him mixed abilities of Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman.
Yeah.
But not but not the OP stuff from Superman. More of like just his ability to fly. While Spider-Man, practically everything you can get from Spider-Man, and Batman pretty much has gadgets of escaping.
I mean, okay, to be fair, we know Koei is a big Spider-Man fan, and there are references to that from the TARDIS Escapees arc with a few panels and whatnot, but Now, unless he starts giving Deku like laser vision or whatnot from the eyes, then I'll be like, okay, there's the other Superman trait.
I mean, that's it. We only have like the second user's quirk not to be revealed yet, so we have no idea what it is yet. Though, from what I can implied, he has a weapon sort of gun thing in his hand, so that might be related to the quirk.
He's a ticking time bomb. No, he's.
But no, some people are wondering if his quirk would be something to counter Stars and Stripes' quirk if it's stealing from Shigaraki, because All for One believes that if Shigaraki is able to steal this quirk, it'll be over for the heroes and all that stuff. He has won the battle.
True.
Before the war's even begun.
Yeah.
Let's see, but yeah. So you can see why. Let's see. And you can see why some people, but this is also why when this fight happened, there was also debates on why, like, okay, let's see, who should actually win or lose this fight?
Yeah.
Let's see. And Lucky Chi, I believe you described it as a lose-lose situation, regardless of what happened.
Yeah, at the time, because it was you were. I mean, because it was a matter of. And you could kind of say I was kind of right on this because you take out Stars and Stripes and it's like you just introduced this character just to kill her off, or you let Shigaraki lose despite after what happened in the Paranormal War, and he still gets his ass kicked, and it kind of takes away the sense of danger from him. So I know some people in the fan base are still kind of pissed off with what happened to Stars and Stripes, But I'll go ahead and say that I think Koei did a decent job of
Let's see.
wrapping up the fight.
Yeah, no, I did give the option of like Koei could potentially do a third option of a stalemate between the two, where they both damage each other but not destroy each other, and they're both forced to retreat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately did not happen for that thing. But I think Koei, out of the choice of the two outcomes, probably chose the best one that he could probably do with that outcome kind of thing, which we'll probably get to in a bit. But yeah. But during the fight, Shigaraki is also aided by Stars and Stripes is aided by her U.S. fighter jet pilot squad, in which one of them is named Wedge. So besides Koei being a huge Star Wars fan, I mean Marvel fan or Spider-Man fan, he's also a huge Star Wars fan.
And to be fair, we've had references before. Like we've had Dagoba, like Dagoba. Come on, and then I think there was a Wookiee camp reference somewhere. I forget where it is. I need to go back and check. But there was there have been like little references here and there. Hell, even was it Volume 20? I think it was Volume 20. The cover for Volume 20, I think practically mirrors the poster for A New Hope. So it's not like the inspiration wasn't there before, but yeah. Oh, let's not forget this man took Akbar and put him into
Yeah, it's like that's not even subtle anymore.
no, like it's like Akbar was like, you know what? They ruined me in the sequel trilogy. I'm gonna come over here.
No, granted, I also have to change my name to Agbar to avoid copyright issues.
Yeah, right. What was your initial take on that? Because at first, when I saw Agbar, I was like, is it just me or does that go?
Well, I think the unofficial translations put him as Akbar, so it's like, oh my god, it's like, but then it's like, oh, Agbar. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because at first I was like, wow, did we really just pull Akbar from Star Wars and like literally put him into like
yeah. Yeah, it's like, oh, baby. But yeah, but at the very least, we know that Koei is, at very least, most part, an original trilogy fanboy, because most of his references are been from the OT.
yeah.
Now, you might make some arguments that, Shigaraki might be somewhat based on Anakin in the prequel trilogy.
I mean, look, if we get a Mustafar reference and it's like Mustafa, then I'll be like, all right, I already know that's Mustafar.
Yeah. I mean, technically, there are volcanoes in Japan.
True. Next thing you know, Deku and Shigaraki are gonna fight near a volcano.
That would be interesting, but yeah. But anyway,
Although I'll say this, I think I'm gonna feel more bad for that volcano than I will for either Shigaraki or Deku because at the rate they're at right now,
yeah.
That volcano will be leveled. No, okay, they're not that powerful, but
yeah. But anyway,
jokes aside.
But anyway, during the fight, we do learn some of the limitations, like we mentioned earlier, about New Order, and the fact that she can only do 2 commands at one time. One for herself, which she always puts on to make sure she gets super strength like All Might, but she can never seem to make her strength match to All Might's. And the other is whatever she wants to do, such as command a person to die, make the air unbreathable, or redirect lasers into a single attack or something.
Yeah.
So it's like that explains her super strength and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a good way of like saying, in many ways, it's a good way of limiting her for someone that could probably have the most OP power ever. Given all the previous OP powers we've had here before, such as technically one all for one and one for all technically are OP. Eri-chan's erase or restoration abilities, and even the mega regeneration ability that Shigaraki has with like once he got one for all and all that. I mean, all for one.
Yeah.
pretty much all that. Those are pretty much Ritzy. Those were like we will probably regard as the 5 OP quirks before Stars and Stripes came in, which I think Manga Reader, when we discussed this, said that this replaced, Eri-chan's abilities as the top 5 OP.
Yeah, I do remember that. And I still remember, because when Eri was introduced, people were like, oh, shit. But then Star and Stripes came in, and it's like, we take back what happened with Eri. I think it was worse.
And another thing about the New Order is that while it's easy of her to give commands to like non-living objects, but living objects is a bit more difficult as well because she might not know everything about them. For example, she could guess the wrong name or something. Like if a person does not see themselves as like Tomura Shigaraki, like she called out, they won't die from just moving or breathing and all that stuff.
See, that's when I knew. Like, as soon as she said that, that's when I was like, huh. I wonder if it's because, and I remember we were discussing about this too, and I was thinking maybe it's because it's not his real name, because we know his real name is Tenko Shimura. So I thought it was just based on that. I was like, no, that would make sense. If it would kind of be like the whole Death Note situation where it has to work if you have like the real name and the real face, because otherwise, if it's just the name, or if it's just the face but the name's fake, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, which is why when L revealed himself to Kira, he couldn't do anything about it. Otherwise, he might blow his cover.
Yeah. So in a way, you could say it was kind of similar here with Stars and Stripes, to a degree, but I don't know. Do you feel like it was kind of similar? Or do you feel like it was a little different in its own way?
In many ways, similar, but let's see, more options and rather than just killing someone.
That's true.
So yeah. But it's why her quirk. But you can see why this quirk is the reason why America values her so highly as their strongest hero, and also why. Let's see, All for One is after this quirk, but also why there are some limitations and why she probably needs backup from her fighter jets and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's due to this quirk that Shigaraki really wants to, get this quirk and all that stuff. And it's, of course, during this fight, we also get, of course, due to the fact that this is, the only time we're going to see Stars and Stripes, because given the ending of it, it's that we get mostly her whole life story of, being saved by All Might, her friendship with, her squad and all that stuff. So it's let's see.
I laugh so hard when she says, hey, if you guys go out, you guys go out. I'm like, that's kind of harsh, but okay.
I'll make sure to bring your corpses back to your loved ones.
I know, I was like, huh. I mean, I get it. I get the enthusiasm. But
I don't know. Is this some sort of military thing in America, I guess?
I don't. It's funny because they don't depict it that way in the movies and whatnot.
Because I know that, let's see, camaraderie with American soldiers is very hot. Seems to be very highly valued in U.S. culture.
Yeah, that's a highly regarded thing for the U.S. wise, but no one ever says, "Oh yeah, we're gonna bring back your corpses." What does?
Let's see. From my understanding, whenever Americans do bring back their corpses, they feel tremendous guilt about ready to try and tell the families and the loved ones.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of taken aback when I heard Star and Stripes say that. I was like, huh. And I was like, if I were me, I would have just said, hey, we take this guy out and we get out of here. That's all.
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, the fact that she was willing to say, yeah, look, if y'all fall, I'll take y'all's corpses with me. I'm like, oh. Huh.
No, granted, that might have been the wrong translation, but I don't know. She's trying to view them as brothers in arms, if you will.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I
I
mean,
do kind of,
like I got the general message of it, but it was still kind of just like, huh. I would have probably worded that a little differently
but
from
yeah.
a writer standpoint, of course. But
Mm-hmm.
that is what it is.
Yeah. But at least it's not the coolest guy ever.
Or thank you for being a mass murderer for our sake. I am never gonna let that one go. That one, or the coolest guy for Life's thing, but
Yeah.
they're equally as bad.
Oh no, I feel like at some point we're probably going to have to see a debate between you and Four. I have to argue which one of them is actually worse.
True.
But no, but let's see. But we have to wait and see if he comes back.
And if
But,
you ending defenders out there listening to this, just know I'm coming for you if you guys target me next.
but yeah, but I do kind of like how, let's see, as the fight gets more desperate, she eventually turns the air into a giant silhouette of herself. Granted, I think only she can see it, not Shigaraki, but you get the idea of it.
And I remember telling you this on, I forget which stream it was on, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of Inner Sakura.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, yeah, it kind of reminded me of like the giant spiritual avatars you kind of get in Naruto, well, and all that stuff.
That
But
or
yeah,
Korra when it came to her astral projection.
but yeah. But it's like, it's the sort of kaiju power-up kind of thing. Kaiju ultimate mode, if you will.
Pacific Rim? That's all I'm going to say.
But yeah, in many ways, I did think, like, you know what? I wish Kishimoto did this with Sakura to give her kaiju avatar mode.
And I got a simple explanation of how you could have done it. Use the Byakugo seal. Could have implemented that with that, and I think that could have actually worked out.
Yeah, and like Byakugo seal combined with some Genjutsu. Make an inner Sakura, but it's mostly Genjutsu, but it's actually her strength.
Yeah.
So it's like fooling to people and thinking they're being punched by a giant avatar, but instead
That
it's
would have actually been cool. Chad, if you're listening to this, that's an idea you can take from me for your story you're working on right now.
Yeah,
I'm more than welcome to take that idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned it to her and all that stuff, but yeah. But yeah,
So
I
if
don't know.
you're listening on this chat, just know that idea is free from me.
Granted, any soccer fan that likes Narasaku and doesn't like Sasusaku. Yeah, I said it, Sasusaku fans. So anyway, so yeah. I do like how eventually the US gets involved, but specifically Agbar, and it's like, if there's one thing America is known for, it's missile launches and missiles in terms of its weapons.
And that's the like even in the MCU, like that happened with Iron Man, and I want to say actually I just saw First Avenger the First Avenger, not the Avengers, but Captain America movie. I saw that recently.
But yeah,
that is a common thing too. Now that I think about it.
But yeah, she either combines her fighter squad's fighter jet lasers into a giant spear, or like the missiles into a giant fist. That is pretty epic, if you will. Sorry, hold on a second. Just need to get the chapter up again. I think it's my tablet's reset. So okay. Let's see, top 5 airs are strongest, weaklips, and her silliest. Okay, that's a Fairy Tail CBR clip ad. Sorry about that. Okay, Gritzy, sorry, but yeah. So it's like, in many ways, you could argue that the combined missile and punch attack that they do is arguably probably the strongest attack we have seen in the series. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just let's see. Let's see. So yeah, it's arguably with this like fist. Let's see what she calls it. The state of the art hypersonic international Constellusa cruise punch, and it's like pretty much a nuclear explosion. Arguably, it could be argued the strongest attack that we've seen from one individual so far. In many ways, it's probably the closest My Hero Academia has gone to DBZ levels in terms of power scaling.
Don't jinx it. because that could happen with Deku versus Shigaraki. And
But yeah, it's so powerful she calls as a creator, but Shigaraki, while let's see, he does have like all for one the hyper regeneration thing. He also has his decay, which is also probably one of the also OP top 5 things I forgot to mention. Because his decay is arguably one of the 5 strongest quirk powers in the existence. Was able to dig a hole that created sort of hole in the gritty crust to soften the impact. In a move that kind of reminded me of Rock Lee versus Gaara, where he used his own gourd to turn into sand and all that stuff to protect him from Lee's gate attack, which eventually allowed him to get a chance to grab Stars and Stripes. Though granted, there seemed to be a moment where she could have just crapped him with his hands and killed him, but that also included taking out the pilot. But she didn't want to risk his life, as we got a little flashback at the beginning of the chapter where they're telling her to not overdo it and not try to keep comparing yourself to All Might, and that you surpass him in your own way and all that stuff. Because she's kind of like a spiritual, she's like a sort of spiritual pupil of All Might, if you will. As her,
I know that got discussions going. It's like, well, if she was a disciple, why didn't she get one for all? But then Koei that following week actually maneuvered around that and made it to where it was more of like in her mind like a spiritual successor rather than actually being trained by All Might.
As the movie revealed that the girl that when a bit of All Might in America, the girl he saved was actually in the car he saved. Yep. She was the older sister. So it's like Stars and Stripes appeared in the movie long before we realized she existed in the manga.
You're right.
So it's like that's a clever tie-in. Granted, you probably get some people arguing, okay, only this flashback part of the movie is canon, the rest of it is not, but still. But it's why besides her iconic, her Stars and Stripes US look, because USA! 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 Or, to show she's an American hero. It's a hero. Her hairstyle is pretty much based on the 2 pointy hair bits of All Might, but she does 6 to show her convictions, I think. Was it 8?
Let me see. I think I'll say 6 to 8. It's around there.
Well, as we know, this All Might admiration still to this day continues to annoy Shigaraki because, no matter where he goes in the world, All Might is somehow impacted, even though he's just for the most part a Japan-centered hero.
Well, I'll say this: at least Shigaraki's consistent, unlike other characters, like a certain Uchiha, who, according to one character, was a blank canvas.
But yeah.
No, but
yeah. But Shigaraki is very battered at this point.
Yep. I do see, here's the thing. Even though we're seeing Shigaraki in the fight, at the very least he's struggling, and I do appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't probably for his regeneration and decay quirk, he'd be dead right now.
I'll say this: the certain times we saw Shigaraki during the fight, there was a few disturbing panels where I was like, "Damn."
Yeah, but then again, Stars and Stripes was determined to make sure Shigaraki dies because she considered him like a global threat more than just one country kind of thing, and it didn't matter what rules they had to break to take him down, because technically I think America was not supposed to fire those missiles in Japan's space.
Pretty much.
And due to disobeying America in the first place, she was going to lose her hero license and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess it goes to show you a sense of grey morality with her a bit, in her sense of justice.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But let's see. But I guess let's see. But I guess we can see, like, given the circumstances, you can probably see she's got a point of what she's doing. Not saying that I think countries should break international law, but yeah. But yeah, but it's interesting to note that originally, let's see, Stars and Stripes was one of the two. Let's see, because it's like interesting to note that, let's see, the League of Villains were trying to prevent, like, the meetup of New Order and One for All, because these two quirks combined could probably be enough to take them out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And apparently, it's originally that All for One, the reason why he's so focused on All Might at first was to get this quirk, let's see, and All for One first so he can take on New Order. But due to New Order coming here, let's see, he changed the plans a bit because he says, like, he sees an opportunity and he's going to take it. And just as Shigaraki grabs her face and all that stuff, it looks like, and is going to steal her quirk. It looks like it looks like that goal has been achieved, but let's see, Stars and Stripes has one last laugh, if you will. Are you going to reveal it, Lucky Chi, or should I?
Go ahead. Yeah, you're actually doing a pretty good job describing it, so I'm leaving it all with you.
So yeah, pretty much, let's see, Stars and Stripes' final order for New Order is that if this quirk gets merged or interacts with other quirks, it will resist and destroy them.
Which, honestly speaking, was a cool twist. I actually really liked it. I was like, huh. That's an option I would have considered, but a good countermeasure.
It's like, let's see, you finally acquired the quirk, but... and everyone's, like, criticizing her for, like, her move of, like, letting Shigaraki get her to her, even if it meant not losing their lives. But let's see, she knew she wasn't able to crush him at that point, but she figured, like, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me.
Yeah, definitely.
And as a result, New Order, who revolts against any other quirk, is tearing apart inside Shigaraki's body and what is inside, and All for One that's inside of him and all that stuff. Because All for One is sort of like seems to be a sort of merging a semi-conscious. Because from the way this fight has been describing with Shigaraki, it seems like he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know if he's like, Nana Shikare's grandson, or if he's All for One, or if he's becoming an entirely new being, if you will. In many ways, it's kind of like, Orochimaru taking over people's bodies, but in a much more twisted sense, if you will. And that's all that stuff. So, due to, like, the exchange of her life and all that stuff, in order to stop this global menace, Shigaraki's body is tearing piece by piece, and here we learn a little thing about All for One with his ability to steal quirks. He can steal quirks, but he cannot destroy them.
Which is actually interesting. And I'll be honest, if you told me that during the Hideout Raid arc, I would have been like, really? Because I would have never considered that as a possibility for All for One. That he, because we've known that he's been able to give quirks and take it away, but not being able to destroy it—that's interesting.
Yeah, it shows a sort of weakness that can be exploited, though, the circumstances seem to be very rare for that to ever happen. In fact, it seems to have never happened before until this moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, and during this, as the result, multiple quirks end up getting destroyed inside Shigaraki's body, though how many, we do not know.
I'll say this. I actually don't know how other people feel about this, but it is a good way to actually take away most of the quirks Shigaraki has, because it's able to get him and Deku on, like, almost an even playing field. So in a way, it does more good than harm.
Yeah. Yeah, though granted, some might say the criticism of Stars and Stripes, you only introduce her to depower Shigaraki, blah blah blah,
Yeah,
because
that is the one. Yeah, and like I said, that it's something Steve said during the last podcast. It's a double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, she's brought in to depower Shigaraki, and that's her real importance. But on the other hand, it doesn't make Shigaraki incredibly overpowered to where you have to think, okay, how is Deku like actually going to be able to take him down? You know?
because let's face it, people, there have been shonen manga in the past that have made their final villains, or at least final villains of the arc, so OP that you don't know how believable it's going to be. Like, how can they make this believable of them being defeated?
3 examples. Do we even want to mention the third one? Now I'll keep the third one a secret since the anime's still going. But 2 examples. Yuha Bach. With how incredibly broken he was, and Madara.
Yeah, not to mention Sasuke Aizen.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, they had Kubo had to work around that one, but that one Aizen didn't bother me as much as the other 2 did.
Those two were pretty broken that you wondered, okay, how is it going to happen? And let's see, though Kishimoto eventually had Madara replaced by Kaguya, though granted it looked like Kishimoto finally, gave Naruto and Sasuke the means to actually beat Madara, regardless if Kaguya was replaced. But
here's the thing: if it was base Madara, I think it would have been fine. I think turning Madara into the Sage of Six Paths might have been the thing that was like, huh, how are you gonna overcome that? You know?
So that makes me kind of imply that you think perhaps Obito should have been the Dritzy final fight and Madara be a fight before then, I take it.
Maybe. No, like, you could still have, like, Madara get his body back, but in terms of, like, being, like, the Sage? Huh.
Yeah, I must admit there are some things that that Madara did that Kishimoto.
Like, the more I think about the final arc of Naruto, the more I'm like, more holes start popping up than I might have initially realized, and it's like,
granted, it didn't really help that Kishimoto also gave Madara this ability to create invisible figures of himself that can only be seen by a Rinnegan or sensed by Sage Mode. It's like you're just adding fuel to the fire, but yeah. But yeah, those are mostly the 2 examples that everyone thinks of. Madara, let's see, and Bleach with Jurabak or Aizen, depending on who you ask.
yep.
Let's see. Granted, there have been other. I'm not sure if there have been other shonen mangas that have done this as well, though. I guess
There is one, and you know specifically which one I'm referring to, but I'm not naming it right now because
is it. Let's see, one that you refuse to speak about since April.
well, more so because of the anime that's still ongoing, and I don't want to ruin people's hopes and dreams for it.
Okay, let's see. One that's current. I see which one you're referring to.
Yeah.
But yeah. Let's see. But yeah, that one could also be considered like, okay, you definitely made this.
Especially considering all the rules that was established prior to that fight. Yeah. No way.
But yeah. But if I go to show you, if there's one downside to manga storytelling, is that they always raise the stakes higher and higher. Granted, this seems to be a problem that's stemmed from, let's see, most mangas being inspired by Dragon Ball.
Well, there's one exception, I would say, and that would probably have to be... Actually, no, 2. Because Gintama did a pretty good job. And the only other one I could think of is Rave Master. I think Rave Master did a pretty good job, too, of not making...
That's also probably Full Metal Alchemist, and... Let's see, there's another one, but I'm not going to mention it because of the mangaka's controversy.
Yeah, so... There have been examples where, you get to the final fight, and it's like the villain's tough, but he's not, like, ridiculously overpowered to where you're like, huh.
you could see him being defeated in a certain way.
Yeah,
Even in Demon Slayer, where the final villain is
with Muzan, yeah.
yeah. While you can't cut off his head, you can burn him in the sun and all that stuff. So that fight is mostly just keeping him still until the sun rises.
Did you just
And I thought,
the anime only? I'm joking.
sorry, but I'm pretty certain most people that read this podcast are probably manga only fans, so they'll probably watch that, and they probably already know Demon Slayer.
By listen to the podcast, I don't know how you read a podcast.
Sorry, listen to the podcast. I mean, so I was trying to like.
I know what you meant, Blue.
Yeah, I assume that most people that are watching this, listening to this podcast, people who usually read manga series.
Oh, sure.
Now, granted, I will apologize if you have not read Demon Slayer yet, and I've already spoiled this bit in advance for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, I'm not spoiling everything that's happened at the end of that fight.
I mean, look, if anyone hasn't seen Mugen Train yet, I'll admit, I haven't watched the movie yet, but I have read the arc, so I know the context of it. I just haven't seen how they've adapted it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
there. But yeah, so as we can see, Shigaraki is pretty much being torn herself inside him and all that stuff. And yeah, let's see, Wedge and the rest of the American fighter jets, all are still alive. Let's see, not one of them has died. It's only Stars and Stripes. They're trying to keep blasting him with lasers before he tries to desperately, with him and All for One, trying to, find someone to give new order to before it tears him apart. I should probably also mention that Stars and Stripes has also died because the decay quirk was also in effect when Shigaraki stole the quirk.
Everybody in the not everybody in the fan base, but some of the people in the fan base were like, "Why, Kohei? Why'd you introduce her just to kill her off?" I mean, you could say she was kind of like another Night Eye situation, where if you kept Night Eye around, I don't know, sense of danger would have been kind of lost.
But yeah, in many ways.
Hey, Blue, you keep talking. I just got a phone call right now, so I'm going to mute myself for a second.
Okay, but pretty much due to Shigaraki is cursing Stars and Stripes and cursing All Might because no matter where, let's see, because it's like he blames him for Stars and Stripes' heroic self-sacrifice thing. Let's see, 8 tufts of hair. Sorry, it was 8 tufts, Lucky. And eventually, he becomes desperate enough that he manages to find a petty criminal by the name of Kashiko Kashi, apparently a convicted robber and murderer, who may or may not be with either his sister or girlfriend. I'm not able to tell because they have this. Because the manga panels imply that they have the same color of hair, so I can't tell. Because you never know. When it comes to manga, it's either same hair color means they're related, or there's some kind of like couple or something that just happen to have the same hairstyle. So you have like that. But yeah, pretty much. Let's see. But pretty much quite a few quirks of Shigaraki's has been taken down. But just as like All for One is able to get Shigaraki to transfer the quirk to like this petty criminal, as he's boasting about how he's won, Shigaraki ends up thinking about Midoriya, and he looks like he's in a scared little child form.
Yep.
Yeah, let's see. So this is probably also implying that the idea of like Midoriya might just be able to save Shigaraki is still a possibility.
Which I know a lot of people aren't going to be super big on, and I've always said this: depends on execution.
Yeah,
the big thing. You could make some case in point, Dobby. Everyone in the fan base probably knew Dobby was related to Endeavor, but it's a matter of how you handle that reveal. And the way Koei handled Dobby, I think worked.
Yeah, it's like, okay, he knows everyone knows. So instead of like doing like, surprise, surprise, instead he does it for when the time to reveal it, just as a way to cause the biggest negative impact he could do in in his world and all that stuff.
Yeah.
When everyone else that would not know about it will also learn the truth of Endeavor, as the hero society has failed to stop the villains from causing a massive amount of damage and all that stuff. But yeah. But it's interesting though. Let's see. Eventually, when the Jets inform like the Japan heroes and all that stuff, and word gets out to like the rest of the nations that the strongest U.S. hero has now fallen. Worried that they might lose their own military power with their heroes, because this is probably a big loss for America. I think Wedge thinks that with this moment, Stars and Stripes has surpassed All Might. Though whether or not people will debate that or not, I think remains to be seen.
I'll say this. I know you touched on Midoriya for a little bit, but the panel where you do see Deku, I actually think it's kind of cool how you've got the hands around him, and it's kind of like mirroring Shigaraki in a way.
I guess, though I'm not sure if that's necessarily Deku. I think that's actually a young Tomura being covered by the hands.
Okay. That makes sense, because I initially took that as Deku. Well, because in manga-wise, it's same hair color and whatnot.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's one thing that you could say that comic books have over manga in terms of art style is that unless, let's see, the manga gets a recolored reprint, you're able to tell the colors of what the characters look like and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and volume covers too. Volume covers kind of help you out with that also.
Not every character gets a volume cover.
Unfortunately, but
yeah. Anyway, the rest of the world decides to join in, so that much to the frustration of Salam from Egypt.
Yep, so, Mr. Tootie over here.
So in many ways, this arc also explains why Japan is on their own and why you're not getting the world heroes coming in and all that stuff. It's like, which is on one hand, I'm a little disappointed because I thought we were going to get like a full-scale global war arc from this, but it seems like we're still probably getting a full-scale war arc, but it seems to be in Japan only.
Well, not just that, but essentially what this mini arc did is it was able to buy Class 1A time to prep up for the final battle.
Yeah, as U.S. pilots are able to inform All Might and the police and all that stuff that how Stars and Stripes' death was not in vain of destroying the quirk, and apparently Shigaraki was 98% complete, but due to the damage he's now taken, instead of 2 days, it will now take about a week or so, I think he said.
Yeah, at least a week is what All Might's saying, because I'm looking at that page right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's when you finally get to see Class 1A. And it's also where you learn that Midoriya's battered hero costume is now being replaced by his UA sports gym clothes again. Which we have not seen since the time the League of Villains attacked and all that stuff. So I'm not sure if that means that Midoriya is going to be just stuck with his sportswear for like his hero clothing for the rest of the series now, or he'll get his hero clothes back eventually. But that's what he's currently doing, at least for the time being.
Yeah, I'm curious to know what his new I hope it doesn't go back to what it was before. Like, okay, the ragged look I think was probably the best design Deku's hero costume was, but I'm curious what it's gonna look like now, since I guess you could say patched up, but.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do know that Midoriya's costume changes with each modification, so who knows? Maybe they'll do some new kind of greenish color or something.
Could be.
One that might not be as dark green, but one that's a bit mixed between the light and the dark green is to show a bit more of a positive hero, I guess. But that's just me.
He looks more like Two-Face from the Batman animated series. But yeah. If I see that, then I'm going to be like, all right, Cohen, now you're taking your inspiration a little too literal now.
But yeah, I am curious to see if, like, But I do wonder if perhaps it's a week enough time to actually prepare, because that seems like a very small thing.
I mean, it's better than 2 days.
That is true. I mean, let's see. Yeah, that is true. Granted, if it was me, I think I'd probably like to have done a month or so. But then again, I guess Koei's realized that like the second year, they should be starting their second year soon, technically. So, but I still want them to be Class 1A just for a little bit longer.
Here's what I wonder. I wonder if, and this is just my big speculation here. I wonder if My Hero is gonna end. Like the main story ends with them going into their second year, and then we flash forward to them in the future as pro heroes. I wonder if that's what's gonna happen.
That is my guess.
And if that's what this is, I know some people are saying, "Really, we're just gonna stick with them as 1A." But if that's what Koei wants to do, then hey, it's all on him.
But yeah, I think it's very clear that they're gonna that is probably the most likely outcome. I think, but yeah.
By the very end, they'll just go to 2A and then flash forward in the future.
Yeah, I think that's possibly so. Or as far in the future they are, whoever Deku's narrating to, which many still assume is going to be his father.
His father? Mm-hmm. Yeah, could be his father, could be his son. Could even be the protagonist from Vigilantes.
Yeah. But overall, I'd probably say this mini arc, let's see, being a fight and all, I think it was a pretty decent fight. Granted, there was a lot of exposition.
Yeah, I'll say this. In terms of like fights, I mean it was engaging. I'll say that. It did kind of keep you guessing as like, all right, so how is the fight actually gonna go down? And I think personally, with how Koei handled it, again, I feel like he did a pretty decent job given with the length of the actual arc itself.
Yeah. I definitely said that this is probably also the most OP fight since, I suppose, All Might versus All for One, in a sense.
True.
And again, All Might and All for One were both past their primes at that point, but still.
Yeah.
But yeah.
As far as pros and negatives go, and we can just combine the two of them, because of how short it is. I'll say the fight was pretty good for the most part. Downside, yeah. You could boil it down to expositions.
But yeah, but I definitely say another thing is that I do fully somewhat understand the criticism. Like some of these characters should have been hinted at or mentioned sooner.
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, this is a double-edged sword situation. I know some people could say taking out Stars and Stripes is considered a negative because she was only introduced for these handful of chapters.
And for this one specific purpose.
Yeah, so I don't know if I would. Me, it's like, yeah, it's a negative, but you're also kind of keeping Shigaraki as like a credible threat still too. So I don't know. Well, where do you stand on it, Blue?
Let's see. I think if you're gonna have Stars and Stripes lose, this is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
As like, let's see. Granted, we still don't know what exactly Shigaraki has lost in terms of quirks yet. Now, from what I can tell, it seems like at the very least, Search is still an active quirk, given some of the stuff that's come out from the latest chapters. But I'm not going to go into details. You know, Ragdoll's quirk.
Yeah.
So I think that is still in effect because that is like a pretty useful quirk. But yeah. And I'm pretty certain he's probably going to still have his regeneration, the decay quirks. But everything else, I think, is up for grabs.
Oh, for sure.
So it's all like that. But so that's one thing. Granted, I will admit, I would have liked for like perhaps maybe a little bit more of like I think this is probably perhaps, let's see, due to one thing I say is that for Koei with the international heroes, this is probably just more late world building on his part, though it's not as bad.
And I get, okay, you could argue that's a nitpick, but I maybe you could even say, yeah, it's a valid criticism where it's like, It would have been cool to get this early on, but you know.
But in many ways, I suppose this way Koei is able to show why he's able to just focus on the Japanese villains and all the other international ones, because say like with Naruto, I think one of the biggest problems with the later half of part 2 is that he introduced all these characters from different villages that we had not seen before. And he tried to give time to develop and flesh them out, but at that point, no one really cared about these characters, and they'd rather see the ones that we did see in the past get development. Let's see. At the very least, it means that at the very least with this one, you don't have to worry about the kids from UA, the heroes from the other schools, and even the heroes that remain. Because about half of them have now either died or retired now, because like Japan's heroes have been military has been reduced to half, if you will, in terms of heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So at the very least, those lot are the ones that are still getting the focus and all that stuff. So you don't have to worry about too many more characters coming in and stealing the spotlight, because that's always a problem with shonen manga. Too many characters for one series and not enough time to focus on all the ones that people want to see.
Case in point, Naruto. Or, yeah, you could make the argument say Bleach too, but...
Yeah. Let's see. Bleach's problem is that it focuses on too many side characters for a long time before going back to the main ones.
Well, and here's the thing I'll see with Bleach, is because, like I said, we know... in the final stretch of the last arc, Kubo's health was deteriorating. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, that is a downside of Bleach's final arc, but at the same time, it's like, what could have the final arc actually been if Kubo's health was stable, you know? Like, throughout the entire run.
Well, yeah, that is interesting. No, I would probably say for Oda, he seems to, at the very least, with at least one, has managed to find the balance between what screen time should go to the minor characters and what should be the main focus with the main ones.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So I'll say that, but yeah. Let's see. But yeah, I did. But I also like. But yeah, but it's mostly been fun. But it's like but this mini arc most likely will just be like an episode, 2 episodes, or maybe 3 at best.
Yeah, I'll say this. If I were to give my general thoughts on the arc itself, maybe a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10, which in terms of my own rankings goes like between a good plus and a great.
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with that. It's not like it's it could have been longer and it could have given more time to expand on these details. It's pretty good for what it's shown.
Yeah.
And it goes to show that not every manga arc has to be chapters upon chapters upon chapters of content.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ideally, I probably would have maybe done at least another few more chapters to build up more of like the world into how the rest of the world is doing, and more insight to like All for One's plan and stuff, because we got a bit of glimpses of like how he wants to make Spinner the poster boy for like the all non-humanoid quirk users that will rally to their cause, if you will.
Yep.
Anyways, showing showing the sort of the paranormal liberations ties to like possibly the X-Men, if you will. Because I guess let's see with Spinner, Koei shown he might also be a bit of an X-Men fan.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, but who knows? I don't know how much he's mentioned the X-Men really, but yeah. Let's see. So anyway, is there anything else you want to kind of bring up, Lucky Chi, or?
Well, I know when we were doing the Rise of the Villain Saga, we typically did the rankings of the arcs, but since this is only the second arc, I think it's pretty easy. I would say this one's probably like below the Tartarus Escapees arc, just the second arc itself.
Yeah, it's no doubt the weakest of the 2 arcs so far because it's short and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to the current arc, which at the moment is literally called the current arc until we actually got a title for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I know we're a few chapters into the current arc right now.
Yeah.
I won't get into so much detail as to what we're getting, but personally, I think this current arc we're on right now, I think is going to be the setup arc to the final arc we're going to be getting, which either could probably be at like towards the end of the year or around the summertime. That's my best bet. What about you?
Well, normally
I was going to say, do you feel like this current arc was going to be used as like a setup, or do you feel like it's?
I feel like it.
For a while.
I think it'll probably be a 10 to 20 chapter arc, really. Just get all sort of like stuff to prepare for like the final battle thing, though. Granted, it also depends on how long Koei wants to drag this out, and we all know that when a mangaka says how they want to end it in this amount of time and all that stuff, we know that it can always go longer, and it doesn't always go to their plan.
Or the whole. This is something I've been a little bit more cynical towards. But when we say, "Oh, just wait until you get to the ending," here's the thing: I was on board that train before, but after what's happened recently, I'm like, "All right, let's see what happens when we get to the end." Because
let's see. But I wouldn't be surprised if this manga because if it's like we're building up more from the way this mini arc implies that All for One is planning a more full scale war and all that stuff, with finally conquering Japan and all that stuff before setting his sights to the rest of the world. Kind of like how I think J.K. Rowling described with Harry Potter about how, Voldemort, once he took over Britain, he was planning to do to the rest of the Wizarding world afterwards.
Yeah.
So that's what we got here. But as we know, war arcs for the most part, tend to be pretty long. I mean, there are exceptions.
I mean, if you look at it, the Alvarez war arc in Fairy Tail wasn't like super long for being technical here.
Technically, yes, but I feel like but it also depends on how Koei wants to wrap everything up. Because let's see, at the very minimum, I can see. I feel like My Hero Academia could probably have another 70 or so chapters in it, depending on how it's paced.
Let's see here. If we're looking at the chapters right now, it's on. Okay, the 341 hasn't officially come out yet, but if we're including that, and if we're including volumes, and I know volume, the number of volumes don't typically matter per se, but I do remember Koei said that he wanted My Hero to last up until like volume 30, and I know that's kind of gone. He's kind of gone a little bit ahead of that now since the cover volume 33 came out. But if I were to guess, I'd say maybe, and I could be wrong here. I mean, the contents for volume 33 are pretty much done. We don't know what chapter that's going to end off at. But, yeah, let's say roughly between 50 and 60 chapters. That's probably where, like, how much time we got left for My Hero.
Yeah,
which will probably bring it to, 40 volumes in total, I think?
Yeah, and possibly 400 chapters, but yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps, if My Hero Academia could potentially go into, just into 2024, so it could be around the year anniversary.
Yeah.
I could potentially see that happening.
It could, or it could be or this is what I'm thinking. You get let's say the manga ends in 2023, right?
Yeah.
And then and then in 2024 you get, and I know this is taboo considering it's happened before, you get an epilogue movie, which
it just made more questions rather than answer, but yeah. So it's possible that might be they could do that for the anniversary thing, but yeah. But yeah, in many ways,
or I was even going to say it could maybe the 10-year anniversary could be like. I know a lot of people are hoping maybe we could get a sequel series out of it.
well, there's already like a spin-off series of My Hero Academia with vigilantes. So
There's vigilantes and then the lesser known ones like team up missions is the other one too.
yeah, no, yeah.
I mean,
No,
I guess if you wanted to continue adventures outside of like the all for one versus uh Deku conflict, but I guess you could just continue the stories off from that with team ups. That could be something.
possibly, but yeah. I mean, let's see. Shonen Jump has been known to try and create more spin-off or continuing, let's see, manga series long after when they're supposed to should have ended and all that stuff. Anyway, from what I can tell, at the very least, it seems. Let's see. Currently, let's see. The current arc of My Hero was a mix of like resolving a current plot line that has been, let's see, subplot line that's been wondered about from the fandom for a very long time.
Yep.
I'm not going to say what it is, but people might know. And it looks like there's currently being a setup between both the heroes and the villains. So, granted, we do know that, let's see, the heroes want to do, let's see, from the particular class of 1A, want to do some sort of like musical, let's see, performance for like the residents and the thing. So we're probably going to get that first.
Hey, I'll say this. I don't think it's going to be as long as the Culture Festival arc when it comes to the musical thing. I think if I had to take a guess, I'd give it maybe like 1 or 2 chapters and call it a day for that.
Not to mention, there seems to be some refocus back on a particular group of UA students and a particular school. I'm just not going to say which one.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that could in itself be its own other arcs before like the final arc.
It could be.
But we just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Actually, here's an interesting thing. I don't know if you've noticed, but I noticed it on Reddit and on like a few other discussion threads and whatnot. But I've seen some people kind of now theorizing even more so now that maybe, and it's a theory I came up with, by the way, and you know where I'm going with this, is maybe the battle between Shigaraki and Deku ends with them sacrificing their powers, which, again, that's just a wild card theory I threw out there, but I know some people won't be super thrilled about that.
I know James wasn't, which let's see, one thing I'd probably say that, let's see, downside of James not being here is that we can finally see whether or not he was satisfied with how Stars and Stripes was handled. Because he had the biggest worry about Stars and Stripes.
No, and I didn't blame him. I could totally get where he was coming from, because you deal with a quirk like Stars and Stripes, and it's like, how do you work around that? So...
Yeah. Now, granted, I do wonder what the state of America is in at least the world of My Hero now that they've lost their strongest hero. Who knows? Maybe that will be something that'll be addressed later, or maybe a spin-off series will address it later.
A spin-off series called My Hero Academia Americana. You don't want to name it that. You do that, and yeah, you're kind of messy. You're kind of screwed. My Hero, USA. There we go. My Hero USA.
Or My Hero America. No, that sounds corny. Sorry.
My American Hero. That sounds even worse.
But yeah. I suppose that
Let me ask you this: if that theory actually does come to fruition between Shigaraki and Deku, how would you feel?
I guess I'd be kind of disappointed, because I kind of feel like Midoriya will. Well, granted, I originally thought Midoriya was going to, become a hero and pass on the quirk to someone else, but I think, after the talks with, like, the previous users, that theory has been probably killed off.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying it's a possibility, but I kind of feel like I'm a little disappointed that Midoriya won't grow up to be, like, the hero that he always wanted to be and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's my main thing. Granted, I feel like with the way of how Shigaraki stole Stars and Stripes quirk, and then she made that order to like have it self-destruct inside Shigaraki is probably the closest you're going to get to that theory.
Yeah, and that's how I've been seeing that theory being talked about, and I'm just like, look, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, and it's something I've always mentioned to you, Blue. It all depends on execution.
Because I believe we did have a debate about a particular way of how a certain manga could have ended, depending on whose side we sided on, and how it could work and how it could not work.
And ultimately, I ended up being right. Much to your dismay.
Yeah, I still argue. I still make my standpoint that if it was done correctly, you could have made it work the way I was talking about.
Fair.
No, granted. Let's see. No, granted, I did end up being right about one thing on how it would have, if one thing would happen to end it. No, I'm not going to get into that later because that would cause a whole ring of thing. But
especially with the anime onlys, you don't want to ruin their day with that.
But I definitely think let's see this. While it's an interesting theory, I think that it's kind of been sort of debunked with what happened with Stars and Stripes.
That's a big thing too, yeah.
Because I think
I was going to say this. I think with what's been getting people's attention on that theory in particular is, I don't know where this is from apparently, but someone mentioned that apparently Koei's actually okay with like bittersweet endings. So I'm like thinking, okay with bittersweet endings, huh?
Now we do know in the second movie that he gave Bakugo his quirk and all that stuff. That was an idea Koei initially had.
Yeah.
But he changed it. For all we know, this might have been another ending that Koei might have think of, but instead just did it with Stars and Stripes.
True.
Now, granted, I'm not saying that. Let's see. Oh, Koei has no idea how he's going to end this series, but
I mean, he said from and this is the thing. He said from jump he knows how the series ends, and like I've told you, Blue, before last year, I would have said, "All right, cool," but at this point, I'm skeptical about that statement now. Whenever an author brings that up, because I'm just like, okay, well, let's see what happens when we get to the end.
Well, at the very least, I think he has an idea of how the ending is going to happen. Though, how he does it is, I think, the thing that you just got to look out for.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anything else we need to address, or have we just covered everything?
I feel like we've covered everything. I mean, okay, so we know season 6 is coming, and I'll briefly touch on this. I feel like season 6 is just going to tackle the entirety of the war itself. I feel like.
Well, I definitely need to finish off my season 5 reviews, though. Granted, I'm probably just going to you know what, screw it, just do all the remaining episodes and then one big review and my thoughts on them and all that stuff.
Unless you want to tackle a stream on your end. We could just talk about it like that.
But I think you've already did a podcast about season 5.
Yep.
So yeah.
Not the plug for the channel, guys, but that video will be in the description box down below if y'all want to hear our thoughts on season 5.
But yeah. Let's see. Granted, let's see if that season 6 can redeem. Let's see the issues people had with probably season 5.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and say this. Oh, go on.
Sorry, I was just making a comment about like it did with the manga. Sorry, go on.
I know some people are thinking maybe we could get the Tartar Scapies arc in season 6. I don't know if that's tricky. I don't know if there'd be enough content to include that arc in. I feel like starting off season 7 with the Tartar Scapies arc would be the better move.
Yeah, I think that's what they're probably going to do because I think they like to make sure they have at least 40 chapters of content for doing like an entire season.
Yeah, and if we're really considering it, because the Tartar Scapies arc is only 22 chapters.
So that's pretty much like half a season's worth.
Yeah, that'd only be half a season, and the Stars and Stripes arc is only like 6 chapters, and if we're going by the last arc that did this, which was the Remedial Course arc, that was only 3 episodes. So really, if we're looking at it, season 7 might end up being, if I'm to play a guessing game here, let's say like maybe 14 episodes at best. Maybe.
Let's see. At least, these 2 arcs make at least 13 to 14 episodes. And depending on how long this current arc is, could be the second half of season 7.
Yeah, and if we do get another movie, which I want to say we're probably going to get another movie. I don't know when, but if we do get the other movie, I could see it being within the timeline of post when Deku leaves UA and before the TARDIS Escapees arc. And here's how you do it. You don't announce the movie when okay, you could announce, yeah, there's a movie coming out, but you don't tease what the movie's about until after season 6.
Mm-hmm.
Because then by that point, Deku's already out of UA.
Has a new movie been announced yet, or
no? It hasn't been announced. No, like I'm not. There hasn't been a new movie announced. I'm just saying, you could announce that there's another My Hero Academia movie coming when they're, airing season 6, right?
Yeah.
But you don't tease what the movie's about until after you finish season 6.
Okay.
Just to play on the timeline of, okay, it's after Deku leaves UA, but before the TARDIS Escapees arc.
But yeah, there's possibly maybe a movie just before then and all that stuff, but I don't know. There might even be a movie of like Deku going more of Deku's solo journeys and all that stuff, but that the manga wasn't able to show.
Show him going more insane? Hell yeah, sign me up on that.
But we'll just have to wait and see.
Actually, how ballsy would it be if they actually said, we're just going to make the Class 1A versus Deku fight the movie? It's ballsy to do, but interesting. I'm not going to lie.
Well, from what I can tell, a movie, with canon material would mostly end up being like at least a volume's length, or at least from what we've seen with Demon Slayer when it did its.
Yeah, because with Mugen Train, that was like only a volume, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and when they separated to anime episodes, it was 6 episodes. I know that technically it's 7 episodes, but the first episode was its own original content. With Rengoku and all that stuff. I'm not sure if that was
the Demon Slayer anime actually had filler. I'm joking.
Let's see. From the looks of it, though, I'm not sure if the stuff with Rengoku was based on something that was in a spin-off book or a manga or not, but it was content that was not in the original manga.
Yeah, I know when it comes to canon material, it's typically a volume. Because like even the Jujutsu Kaisen movie that just came out, that was just only 1 volume too.
I think that was volume 0.
Yep, that was volume 0. So I mean, if I'm not saying they're gonna do the TARDIS Escapees arc as a movie, but if you were to do that, that's like 2 volumes to cover. That's a lot.
So yeah, so it's like, from what I can tell, they'd probably try to do a movie with like only 1 volume stories and all that stuff. So
yeah,
at the moment, I can't really think of any current My Hero manga story that can be made into a movie by itself. Except maybe like except you could have perhaps done that with the Summer Festival or the Hero Hideout Raid arc, as those being 2 separate movies.
it could have. I like your approach. I think focusing a little bit on Deku's solo journey, immediately after he gets out of UA, I think would be kind of cool. And if you wanted to tease something for season 7. I don't know, showcase Muscular.
Yeah, that could be an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, not saying we're gonna get a 4th movie, but I feel like because of how popular My Hero is, I feel like that's inevitable.
Yeah, I remember when Corey says, "I don't see us doing a 3rd movie," but then here we are, 3rd movie.
Yep. for the most part. But yeah, like I said before, guys, when it comes to my thoughts on this mini arc, it's like a good plus to great arc, which in terms of number scale is like a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. But in terms of like this Final Act Saga, I think that's what they're still referring to this as. This one for sure is the weakest one out of the two, since that's all we got to work with.
I think it's very clear it's also going to be the shortest saga in the series at this way.
Yeah, I mean, unless Koei has other things we're gonna get before we get the final fight.
At least the one with the least amount of arcs.
Yeah, but aside from that, you guys, I think that's pretty much it when it comes to this My Hero podcast. James and Steve and Manga, if y'all are listening to this, y'all can kill Blue later.
Hey.
I'm joking.
Yeah. Now, let's see. For Life, if you're also there, we hope you'll be able to join us again soon.
He may be resurfacing soon. I haven't gotten in contact with him yet, but he did pop up somewhere recently, and I was like, huh. But yeah, if y'all are watching this, like I said, you're probably, eating popcorn right now, eating some pizza, and probably making fun of Blue, which I approve of all of it.
Hey!
But in all seriousness, Blue, it was really great having you on board again for another My Hero podcast, and, being one of the few consistent members on the podcast, too.
I'm pretty much the only person that's appeared in every My Hero Academia podcast you've done, and I intend to do that to the very end.
Commitment, guys. Commitment.
Yeah. It's great to be here and all that stuff, Lucky Chi. Thank you again for let me join. And it seems that once again, I am your only co-host.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see, granted, we might have dragged this out a bit longer than we probably should have, but it's been a while since we've chatted to each other as well.
That's true, yeah. I mean, there are exceptions. There are definitely exceptions for sure.
But I definitely think that we commented a lot on what we liked about about this arc, and perhaps didn't make it too much about me summarizing.
No, I'll say this: I think you did a pretty good job with tackling the mini arc itself.
Let's see. Well, I guess I'll find out when Steve listens to this podcast.
True. Steve is the ultimate judge on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely, for sure.
They're probably like, how did you guys make this into an hour and a half with just you two?
I'm like, so considering how short the arc was, even I said, yeah, it's probably going to be like under 2 hours, which, hey, look at the length right now. It's under 2 hours.
Yeah, and to be fair, we also discussed a few other things related to My Hero Academia.
That's true. We did. I guess final notes to end off on. I'm curious with where we're going with My Hero, especially since we're back with Class 1A. Curious of what's going to happen with Deku. Curious with that conversation he's going to have with Ochako. Honestly speaking, I'm going to be annoyed if Koei reveals they had a conversation and it happened in flashback. I'm like, really? Yeah.
I have a feeling that he's going to address this, whether or not it'll be just before the final arc or some point during the final arc.
No, he's going to address it. I have no doubt about that. He's going to address it. But I'm going to be like, so you off-screen that conversation only to have it at the very end in a flashback.
Let's see, but Koei isn't really known to do that, really.
No, of course not.
Let's see, but yeah, so it should be fine.
It should be. Yeah, I don't think there's much left to talk about. At least until when this current arc finishes. So,
or we end up finally doing that movie podcast.
Yeah. I'm gonna say maybe we'll probably tackle the movie podcast next whenever it drops on Blu-ray. I feel like that's gonna happen first, but who knows? Koei could surprise us in this arc in a couple months from now.
Uh-huh.
Having said that, you guys, that's pretty much it. I'm LuckyRave,
I'm BlueStarSaber.
and we'll catch you guys next time. Plus Ultra.
Plus Ultra!